Sadeola's fingers trembled as she counted the crisp Naira notes for the third time, her dark eyes reflecting the harsh fluorescent light of the cramped apartment. Her skin, rich as polished mahogany, bore the stress lines of countless sleepless nights, the vibrant Ankara head wrap that usually crowned her head, with regal elegance hung loose around her shoulders, mirroring her defeated spirit. "Are you certain about this?" Chinedu asked, her voice cutting through the suffocating silence. Chinedu was a striking woman in her early 30s, with skin like burnished copper and cheekbones that could have been carved by master sculptors. Her natural hair formed a magnificent crown of tight coils, and her full lips, painted in deep burgundy, curved into what could barely pass for a sympathetic smile. Gold jewelry adorned her neck and wrists, evidence of her comfortable lifestyle. Sadeola nodded, unable to trust her voice. Her husband Sani sat in the corner, his muscular frame hunched in resignation. Even in defeat, he was breathtaking, tall and lean with skin dark as midnight, his strong jawline and deep-set eyes speaking of generations of proud ancestry. His usually impeccable appearance was disheveled, his white agbada wrinkled from days of anguish. "The debt collectors come tomorrow," Sadeola finally whispered, her melodious voice cracking. "If we don't pay, they'll take everything, our home, our dignity, everything my parents left us." She had inherited her mother's striking features, high cheekbones, full lips, and eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. Her tall, graceful figure usually commanded attention wherever she went, but now she seemed to fold in on herself. Chinedu's manicured fingers drummed against her designer handbag. She had always envied Sadeola's marriage to Sani, had watched from afar as they built their life together. Now, desperation had delivered them to her doorstep. 2 million Naira, Chinedu stated, her businesslike tone at odds with the gravity of the situation. "In exchange, Sani comes to live with me. He'll work in my businesses, help manage my properties. You remain legally married, but he belongs to me in every way that matters," Sani finally spoke, his deep voice resonating with pain. "Sadeola, there has to be another way. This is madness." But Sadeola had already made her choice. The weight of their financial ruin, the shame of impending homelessness, the fear of losing everything her family had built, it all crashed down on her like a tidal wave. She had been raised to be strong, to make impossible decisions when necessary. Her grandmother had survived famines, her mother had weathered wars. Surely she could survive this. "It's done," she said, pushing the signed papers across the small wooden table. The documents weren't legally binding in any court, but in their community. Such agreements carried the weight of tradition and honor. As Chinedu counted out the money, Sadeola watched her husband's face, memorizing every line, every expression. She told herself this was temporary, that they would find a way back to each other. But deep in her heart, a voice whispered that some prices, once paid, could never be refunded. The transaction was complete. Love had been sold for survival. 3 months had passed since the arrangement began, and Sadeola felt like a ghost haunting her own life. She had managed to pay off the debts and keep their family home, but the victory felt hollow. Every morning, she woke to an empty bed, her hand instinctively reaching for Sani's familiar warmth, only to find cold sheets. Her once vibrant appearance had dimmed. Her beautiful skin seemed to have lost its luminous glow, and her expressive eyes now held a perpetual sadness. She had lost weight, her elegant dresses hanging loose on her diminished frame. Even her signature style, the bold colors and striking patterns that had always made her stand out, had been replaced by muted tones that seemed to mirror her broken spirit. Meanwhile, across town in Chinedu's luxurious compound, Sani was adapting to his new reality. Chinedu had spared no expense in making him comfortable. She had bought him expensive clothes that accentuated his impressive physique, taken him to high-end salons to maintain his appearance, and paraded him at social events as if he were a prized possession. "You look magnificent tonight," Chinedu purred, adjusting Sani's bow tie before another business dinner. She had dressed to compliment him, her curvaceous figure wrapped in a stunning gold evening gown that highlighted her copper skin. Her hair was styled in an elaborate updo adorned with gold accessories, and her makeup was flawless. To outside observers, they looked like the perfect power couple. Sani caught his reflection in the mirror. He did look good, perhaps better than he ever had. Chinedu's money had afforded him luxuries he'd never experienced. But his eyes, those deep, soulful eyes that Sadeola had fallen in love with, remained haunted. "I appreciate everything you've done," he said carefully, "but this doesn't feel right. I still love my wife." Chinedu's perfectly painted smile faltered for just a moment. "Your wife sold you to me. Remember, she chose money over marriage. I would never do such a thing." Her voice carried a subtle venom that she quickly masked with false sweetness. "Besides, look at what I can offer you. Status, security, respect in the community." And it was true. Chinedu's wealth had elevated Sani's social standing overnight. Men who had once looked down on him for his humble background now sought his attention. Women whispered admiringly about his good fortune, but none of it filled the void in his chest where his love for Sadeola used to reside freely. At the dinner, Sani played his part perfectly. He was charming, attentive, and handsome enough to make other women envious of Chinedu's good fortune. But his mind kept wandering to Sadeola. Was she eating properly? Was she sleeping? Did she regret her decision as much as he regretted accepting it? Chinedu noticed his distraction and placed a possessive hand on his arm. Her touch was soft, her fingers adorned with expensive rings, but it felt cold compared to Sadeola's gentle caresses. "Smile, darling," she whispered. "We're being watched." Sani forced a smile, playing the role of the devoted companion. But inside, he felt like a beautifully dressed prisoner, bound not by chains, but by honor and circumstance. Back in her empty house, Sadeola sat by the window, staring out at the night sky. She had saved her home, but at what cost? She had everything. She thought she wanted financial security, her independence, her family's legacy intact. So why did she feel like she had lost everything that truly mattered? 6 months into the arrangement, Sadeola's world had become a carefully constructed prison of her own making. She threw herself into work with desperate intensity, taking on extra shifts at the textile company where she served as a supervisor. Her colleagues often remarked on her tireless work ethic, not knowing it was her only escape from the crushing loneliness that awaited her at home. Despite her emotional turmoil, Sadeola remained strikingly beautiful. Her natural grace couldn't be diminished, though those who knew her well could see the sadness that had settled into her features like shadows. Her luminous dark skin still drew admiring glances, and her tall, statuesque figure commanded respect in business meetings. But her smiles had become practiced performances, and her laughter sounded hollow even to her own ears. She began hearing whispers around town, stories of how happy Sani looked with Chinedu, how well they complemented each other at social gatherings, how Chinedu had transformed him into the man he was always meant to be. Each word was like a dagger to her heart. "They make such a beautiful couple." She overheard her neighbor, Mrs. Adebayo, saying to another woman at the market, "That Chinedu really knows how to treat a man. Did you see them at the governor's reception last week?" Sani looked like royalty. Sadeola's hands tightened on her shopping basket, her knuckles pressing against the woven palm fronds. She wanted to scream that Sani was still her husband, that no amount of money could change that fundamental truth. Instead, she maintained her composure, paid for her groceries, and walked home with her head held high, tears threatening to spill only after she was safely behind closed doors. Meanwhile, Sani was struggling with his own demons. Chinedu had indeed transformed his external appearance, but she was also trying to reshape his very identity. She had enrolled him in business classes, introduced him to influential people, and gradually began suggesting that he forget his humble beginnings with Sadeola. "You're too good for that life now," Chinedu would say, her perfectly manicured fingers tracing patterns on his chest as they lay in her lavish bedroom. The room was a testament to luxury, silk curtains, imported furniture, and artwork that cost more than most people earned in a year. "Look at what you've become. You're respected now. Powerful. Why would you want to go back to scraping by?" But Sani's heart remained unchanged. Every luxury felt tainted. Every kindness from Chinedu felt like a betrayal of his true feelings. He missed Sadeola's gentle laugh, the way she would hum while cooking their simple meals. the comfortable silence they had shared while reading together in the evenings. Chinedu's world was glittering and impressive, but it felt as cold and artificial as her perfect smile. The breaking point came when Sani encountered Aminu, Sadeola's younger brother, at a business conference. Aminu was a striking young man in his mid-20s, with the same regal bearing as his sister and skin that glowed with youthful vitality. His eyes, however, burned with anger when he spotted Sani across the crowded conference hall. "How can you live with yourself?" Aminu confronted him during a break, his voice low but fierce. His usually impeccable appearance, crisp suit, perfectly groomed beard, couldn't hide the pain and fury radiating from him. "My sister is destroying herself because of this madness. She barely eats, barely sleeps. She's lost 20 pounds, and she walks around like a ghost." Sana felt each word like a physical blow. "You think this is easy for me? You think I wanted this? Then end it." Aminu's voice cracked with emotion. "Whatever debt you're trying to pay, whatever obligation you think you have to that woman, it's not worth destroying the person you claim to love. Sadeola sold you to save your home. But what's the point if she's dying inside?" The confrontation left Sana shaken. That night, as Chinedu slept beside him in her silk pajamas, he stared at the ceiling and finally admitted the truth he'd been avoiding. No amount of luxury or social standing was worth the price they were all paying. The revelation came to Sadeola like a thunderbolt on a humid Lagos morning. She was walking past the upscale restaurant where the city's elite gathered for Sunday brunch, when she saw them through the large windows, Sani and Chinedu, looking every inch the perfect couple. But it wasn't their obvious comfort with each other that shattered her. It was the way Sani threw back his head and laughed at something Chinedu whispered in his ear. A genuine, unguarded laugh that she hadn't heard in over a year. Standing there, on the sidewalk, wearing a simple blue dress that highlighted her natural beauty, Sadeola felt the full weight of her mistake crash down upon her. She had told herself that Sani was merely fulfilling an obligation, that his heart remained with her despite the circumstances. But seeing him truly happy, perhaps happier than he'd ever been with her, destroyed that comfortable delusion. Her reflection in the restaurant window showed a woman who had aged beyond her 28 years. Despite maintaining her striking appearance, her rich skin still luminous, her figure still elegant, there was an unmistakable sadness etched into her features. She had gained back some of the weight she'd lost, but her eyes held a hollow quality that no amount of makeup could disguise. Inside the restaurant, Chinedu was at her most radiant. She had achieved everything she'd dreamed of: Sani's presence, if not his complete devotion, and the envious glances of every woman in Lagos society. Her success in business had only grown with Sani by her side, his natural charm and intelligence proving invaluable in negotiations and social situations. She wore her victory like the designer jewelry that adorned her neck, beautiful, expensive, and impossible to ignore. "I have a surprise for you," Chinedu announced, her copper skin glowing with excitement as she reached into her purse. "I've been thinking about our future, about making this arrangement more permanent." Sani's smile faded as she produced a set of divorce papers. "I had my lawyers draw these up. Once Sadeola signs them, we can be married properly. No more pretense, no more complications." The papers felt like lead in Sani's hands. He had grown comfortable in this new life, had even found moments of genuine happiness. But the thought of legally severing his connection to Sadeola filled him with unexpected anguish. "Chinedu, this is sudden, is it?" Her voice carried a sharp edge beneath its sweetness. "I've given you everything, Sani. A home, status, opportunities you never would have had otherwise. Surely it's time to commit fully to this life we've built together." That evening, Sani found himself standing outside his old home, the divorce papers tucked in his jacket pocket. The house looked smaller than he remembered, more modest, but it radiated a warmth that Chinedu's mansion, for all its grandeur, had never possessed. Sadeola opened the door, and for a moment neither of them spoke. She was barefoot, wearing a simple wrapper and hedi, her natural beauty unadorned but no less stunning. The months of separation had changed them both, but the connection between them remained undeniable. "I brought something," Sani said quietly, producing the papers. Chinedu wants us to make this official. Sadeola took the documents with trembling hands, her eyes scanning the legal language that would formally end their marriage. Is this what you want? The question hung between them like a bridge they were both afraid to cross. Sani looked at his wife, really looked at her, and saw not just the woman who had sold him for money, but the woman who had sacrificed her own happiness to save their home, their future, their family's legacy. No, he whispered, his voice breaking. It's not what I want. It's never been what I want. Sadeola's carefully maintained composure finally crumbled. Tears streamed down her beautiful face as she tore the divorce papers in half, the sound echoing through the small room like thunder. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I thought I was saving us, but I nearly destroyed everything. They fell into each other's arms, months of pain and longing pouring out in their desperate embrace. Outside, Chinedu sat in her luxury car, having followed Sani to witness this moment. Her perfect facade finally cracked as she watched the reunion through the window, her own tears smearing her carefully applied makeup. She had won Sani's presence, but never his heart. And in that moment, surrounded by all her wealth and success, Chinedu realized she was the one who had truly lost everything. The next morning brought a new beginning. Sani would have to face the consequences of breaking his arrangement with Chinedu, would have to find a way to return her investment and rebuild their life from scratch. But as he and Sadeola sat together in their simple kitchen, sharing breakfast and tentative smiles, they both understood that some prices were worth paying and some things, like true love, could never really be sold.